Hello, and welcome to Brand Clarity by Visions to Images, where we focus on strategy and business development for entrepreneurs at all different levels through branding and digital marketing techniques. Susie Liberatore is the founder and art director of Visions to Images Creative Services, LLC. For the last decade, she has personally been instrumental in bridging gaps between the global digital market and neighborhood locations for some of the biggest brands around. Growth is possible for even a single location with the right professional branding techniques and Susie's signature strategies of Visions to Images. Stand out from your competitors and bring your visions to life while watching your sales skyrocket. Your host for this is Susie Liberatore, owner of Visions to Images. Hello, everybody. Today on the podcast, I have Suzanne Johnson with Grace Financial Coaching. I am excited to chat with her. She's kind of different than most of the financial coaches that I've known and been connected with. So I'm excited to chat with her, and don't be shy about finances. I'm sure she won't do too much pain for you guys. It's okay to talk about finances. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, Susie. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field.
Yeah, so the short version of the story is I found out about this guy, Dave Ramsey, and I had a lot of consumer debts, some student loan debts still hanging around. And I said, all right, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I jumped on the bandwagon and took his class and started working with my own financial coach. And then I decided to quit the day job and become a financial coach myself and do this full time. So I've been doing it full time for about 2 years.
Awesome. That's so excited. I love hearing those stories. Yeah, everybody I'm sure knows Dave Ramsey to some extent. He's definitely a powerful influence. I feel like a lot of times people can connect with him. So awesome.
Yeah, and some people don't like him. So
there's always those. Yep.
He can be very polarizing. He operates in a lot of absolutes. And that's what I always tell people is the cool part about being a financial coach is you can listen to Dave on his podcast, on YouTube, on his radio show, whatever your favorite medium is. But when it comes to the actual individual financial coaches who are local to you and trained in his program, we live in the gray area. Dave has 60 to 90 seconds, maybe 120 seconds if you're lucky, to go through your problem on air, right? Wow. And maybe he's got Christy Wright with him that day. Maybe he's got John Deloney with him that day. And maybe they'll, extend the call a little bit and give you some additional advice. But the answer is going to be pretty black and white. When it comes to the local financial coaches, we get to live in this gray area and we get to hear all of the intimate details of our clients' financial situations. And instead of just saying, suck it up, buttercup, pay off the debt, right. We get to say, hey, we understand where you're coming from. We understand why. Maybe you want to focus on this debt before you focus on that debt. Maybe you want to focus on your emergency fund before you focus on the debt or whatever the situation is. But that's the cool part about being a financial coach one-on-one, because that way I can hear about all of those intimate details and we can figure it out together. And I give that objective perspective to all of my clients.
I love it. So, I guess that kind of talks about some exciting things, but what are you most excited about right now with business happening?
I have gotten, there was definitely a slowdown last year with the pandemic, but I would say that I have gotten a lot more clients in the last 9 months saying, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this, knowing that my job can be furloughed or I can be laid off at a moment's notice, or the business that I'm working for can be completely shut down by the government. We didn't know that was possible. Just even a year ago today, when we're recording this, even a year ago, we're like, okay, maybe restaurants will be closed for another 3 weeks. Like we had no idea what it was going to turn into. So that's the feeling of a lot of people saying, I made it through this year. I somehow survived, but I just don't want to survive anymore. I want to be able to continue living my life, even in a pandemic situation where I might not be getting the income that I'm used to getting.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the pandemic was definitely something that nobody saw coming. And at first everybody's like, oh, 2 to 3 weeks. And here we are a year later, like, hello, we're getting better, but we're still in the same situation.
Right.
Kind of, sort of. And I'm not going to talk about it too much. Yes, absolutely. Having those opportunities and having that safety is so important. And with business owners, gosh, they've been through so much. There's some business owners who have thrived, but they still went through a lot to get there over the past year for sure. And then there's some that are just done, and it's one of those things where, yeah, I never imagined a pandemic would happen. And this is what would cause so much pain to everybody, period. Everybody, no matter what, financially, business, health wise. I feel like sometimes I'm like in a movie still because it's just crazy to think that this could really happen.
Right. And another thing that, to your point, another thing the pandemic has done, you said earlier that people don't talk about money enough. The pandemic has brought up some conversations that we should be having and that we shouldn't be having as Americans.
Right.
But I've been saying this before the pandemic. We talk about sex, politics, and religion more than we talk about money.
Yeah.
And that has to
True.
change. Because if we keep focusing on that stuff and we're just going to ignore the financial issues over here, a lot of people tell me that, well, money is only part of your life. I hate to break it to you, it's really not.
Yeah.
Everything we're doing right now, we're recording this podcast on computers. You got to pay for the computer. You got to pay for the microphone. You got to pay for the Office 365 that I'm using with all my documents. Yeah, money touches everything, guys. Like what kind of car insurance you get. Maybe you can't afford the best car insurance, so you get a crappy kind of car insurance. And when you get in a car accident, you regret that buying that crappy kind of car insurance. Well, if we had just budgeted better, maybe we could have gotten the better car insurance and saved ourselves that pain down the line. But a lot of people aren't going to talk about that. You know what they're going to talk about instead? Instead of telling people that they got the crappy car insurance because they couldn't afford it, they're going to show off the new car they just bought on credit.
Totally.
So we have to stop focusing on, hey, this is what my debt can buy me. This is what my credit score can buy me, and say, hey, what can my cash actually buy me?
Sure.
And what is important to be putting my money towards? So I think that's been a big shift over the last 9 to 12 months for sure, at least in the financial conversations.
I've always been scared of money, which is crazy, right? Like, I'm sure you probably hear it all the time, like scared of money, don't like to deal with money. Like my dad deals with a lot of my accounting and a lot of that end of things. And it's funny that you said, yeah, we need money, because the other day he was telling me money. He was talking money, of course, because he's a money guy. He likes money and numbers. And he was just like, I said, you know what, Dad, money's not everything. Because I used to hear that saying all the time, right? And my dad was like, it kind of is. You need to survive, Suze. And I was like, okay, right? So I like to tell myself sometimes, like, money's not everything, but at the same time, it is. So there's like that still mixed emotion of, yeah, we absolutely need money. And luckily we are able to save and grow. And I knew I needed money. Of course I need money, but where I'm at now, okay, it took a while to get and I'm comfortable, but do we really need to keep, how do we keep doing all of these things to get to where we actually need to be, and figuring out that plan? So important.
Yeah. And Dave tells a really good story in one of his videos about one of his friends that he's made since he's been in the big media space, right? So this guy's worth several $1 million, if not $1 billion. Not Dave, the guy he's talking to.
Yeah.
And he says to his buddy, oh, you guys just you just took your family on a Mediterranean cruise. Obviously, this was a couple of years ago.
Right.
And the guy's like, yeah, I took, the kids and their spouses and the grandkids, and it cost, I don't even know what the number was. Let's call it, I'm making it up, $30,000, right? $35,000 for everybody. 10 days in the Mediterranean with your kids and grandkids is going to cost you maybe even a little more than that. And when they got back, the guy was telling him, I got a phone call from this church or this organization or whatever saying, hey, it's almost Christmas time. We want to be able to buy a few bicycles for underprivileged children in this area of the city near us. And the millionaire guy goes, well, how many bikes do you need? And the guy's like, well, a lot. What would you be willing to put towards it? And the guy's like, well, just give me a number. How many bikes do you need? The millionaire guy ends up buying 1 or 2 tractor trailer loads of bicycles.
Wow. Amazing.
Under the condition that his family, again, kids, their spouses, and his grandkids participated in handing out the bikes.
Oh, that is so
And
sweet.
so Dave asks his buddy, well, which one did you like more? Basically asking him, like, what should I spend my money on? Should I spend my money on these family vacations, or should I spend my money, sewing into the lower income communities and the children there? And the guy goes, you should do both. He
Yeah.
said that they really enjoyed handing out the bicycles, but that you should do both. Well,
Right.
what does that take, right? We want to make these family memories, and it does take money to make those family memories. I'm not going to sit here and lie to
Absolutely.
you and tell you just go sit on your couch and watch TV with your kids
Oh,
all day, and that's going to be some great memory. Like, no, it does take money to make these memories, but it's
yeah.
not the focus on the money that we want. Like you said, money isn't everything, money isn't life, blah, blah, blah. But having these experiences in life is
Right.
made easier when you have a better handle on your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, let's stop for just 1 second during this podcast episode. I know you're so excited to get back and listen, but I wanted to chat with you and talk about how we really work with businesses. What we really do is we dive in and we ask so many questions. We go through a series of questionnaires and extensive research to really help you get a clear, identifiable plan of action that needs to happen for your business. If you want to hear more about this, go to visions2images.com, click the contact us button, and we will be happy to set up a time to chat more. Yeah, you touched on that. Great stuff. Awesome. So what advice would you give somebody, either if they were starting off in the entrepreneur world or if they are
Mm.
starting in the finance world, so they don't really know where to start? What advice could you give?
So I actually coach quite a few coaches on top of my clients. So what I tell my coaches, we do basic setup of business, whether we're doing an LLC or a sole prop, depends on what state you're in. Sometimes it's worth doing the LLC, other times it's really not.
Yeah.
So we do basic setups and stuff like that and understanding, but I try to operate somewhat off the profit first model because I think sometimes new business owners think that they need all these bells and whistles right up front, and they don't. The free one-page website, whether it's WordPress or Wix or whatever the heck you want to use, that's probably okay for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think it's important that you have some sort of website, because a website in this day and age and social media in this day and age is unfortunately part of the credibility game. So I'm not going to sit there and tell them they don't need anything,
Right.
but let's try to do it for the lowest cost possible, the lowest entry fee possible, because we can always add pages to your website in 6 months. We can always add a store to your website if there's a product you want to sell on there, or you want to be able to take payment via your website. We can always do that down the road. When it comes to any entrepreneurs, I always tell them, like, let's create really low barriers to entry. Let's not get in our own heads and say, oh my God, I need 10 social media pages.
Oh my gosh.
Don't overwhelm yourself. It's really not that complicated. If you're confident in your skills and what you can bring to the table as a business owner, you only need the one-page website. The rest of it's going to speak for itself as your body of work, as you grow your business.
You're speaking my language. But so here's the thing. With social media, it's funny because whenever I do presentations, I'm like, you don't need to be on every platform. You don't. Like, it doesn't matter where you are in your business. You do not need to be on every single one. And I used to want to be on every single one. And I got rid of Pinterest and Twitter and all these other ones. And I'm not even on Snapchat or TikTok or whatever. So picking where your audience is so important, regardless if you are starting off or a year later into your business. But it's understanding that you can't do it all and you don't need to be on every platform. Really and truthfully, be where your audience is, be where you're getting the most traction. And it's going to take time, obviously, absolutely. But don't go down that rabbit hole of, oh, I need to be on every platform, and then getting stuck in there and not focusing on what your business actually needs, which is sales and customers and stuff like that. The social media will definitely help, but you have to keep everything else growing in a streamline. And then as far as the website goes, you're so funny that you say start off with a one page. I don't disagree. I mean, a lot of times when you are starting off as a business owner, funds are tight, and a lot of times they can't afford somebody who can come in and do their website or help them or coach them. And you can always have that later down the road and add those pages and add all those bells and whistles later on. But at the beginning, and I know you're probably saying yes, is you're still figuring everything out as a business owner, right? When I first started off, I knew I wanted to do graphics and content and all that fun stuff. And I considered myself a VA. However, I learned after a while I was not a VA. I was like, this is not for me. I don't want people to think I'm a VA. I want to have an agency like I used to work at and build and have all of this full service creative agency feel to it and actually make a living off of it, because I felt like as a VA, pricing was just lowball and you were always competing with $10 an hour people, and that wasn't my case. And I was like, I don't use Canva, I don't use all that stuff. So really understanding at the beginning, you might think you know what you're going to do, but down the line it can still be the same, but you're going to shift dramatically. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. So I liked how you talked
Yeah.
about those. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's so true. But I think the biggest challenge is not just telling people you don't need Twitter and Facebook. It's we have to get out of our own heads
Oh,
because for some
absolutely.
reason we are convinced we need Twitter and
Or somebody says, "Hey, you should be on Twitter. You can get so much traction," or something like that. And then you think about it and you're like, yeah. And then you get stuck in your head
yeah.
again. Like,
Twitter, it for me is just a news feed, right? I follow the news and sports outlets that I want to follow, and that's what I go to Twitter for. I mean, I think, your time is probably, like you said, better spent doing the free one page website and maybe setting up like a Google My Business page
I mean,
because
that can
that's
help.
free. You
Mhm.
don't have to buy their ads. And, whereas with Yelp, they're going to be pushing marketing constantly, constantly, constantly and wanting to be selling you for ads. Google My Business doesn't really do that. There's always the little button that
Right.
says, click here if you want to do an ad, but otherwise you have now you have a Google My Business profile, and it's
Right.
like
And it
that's
helps
insanely
so
helpful.
much
Hmm.
with SEO organically. And it also is, if you're a local business, I mean, Google My Business is a no-brainer because it can have your location on it and it's going to cause you to have more traction. Absolutely. And I mean, I don't have my address shown on my Google My Business page, but it's like hidden, but I still have a Google My Business page. So understanding
Yes,
that you can still have that and really be able to, use what you need and, yeah, have that free resource. Absolutely.
absolutely, definitely. Yeah, and then for people who are just looking to try to get their personal finances in order, I always tell people personal finance is 80% behavior and
Mm.
only 20% math. So
Yeah.
again, it's really about getting out of our heads and saying, okay, look, these numbers don't add up. Oh my God, like I can't afford my lifestyle, blah, 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 and then you might just honestly you might be skewed. So for example, like I use an FDA food graph to tell me where somebody's family or a single person falls in for their grocery spend.
Mm.
Well, guess what? If you're a single female living alone, no children, no husband, one dog, that doesn't even count, and you're spending $1,200 a month on groceries, I'm going to be that person that tells you that's too much money.
Mhm.
That's too much money. I don't care where you are. Even if you're in lower Manhattan where my family lives, like that's too much money. And sometimes you just need somebody to be like, "Hey,
Absolutely.
what you're spending is out of line." And you might not even know that it's out of line. You might not know that $300 a month for one car to be insured is insane.
Mm.
Now, unless you have like a whole handful of speeding tickets and stuff like that. But you might just
Oh,
not
yeah.
even know that. And I see that one all the time. I see that with cell phones and I see that with car insurance.
Gosh.
People stick with the
Absolutely.
same companies. And I'm like, what are you paying $400 a month for two cell phones for? And they're like, oh crap, we didn't even realize it got that high. And we get complacent sometimes, or we just don't know what things should cost in our area. So that's
Right.
one big thing that I work with people on when I first start talking to them. But again, getting out of your own head and realizing like the math's going to follow your behavior.
Mhm.
The math isn't controlling you. The math follows your behavior. When you spend money and then you look at your budget and you figure out what you spent for that month, you spent it. The
Right,
dollars
yeah.
didn't spend
Nobody
themselves.
else did it. Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing is going through your numbers, sitting down with somebody and saying, "Hey, does this," even if it's just a friend, you don't need to go hire a financial coach. Go find a friend and be like, "Hey, what do you spend on your cell phone?
Right.
Do you know what you spend on groceries? Like, are you going to Whole Foods every week? Or are you going to Trader Joe's? Like, what,
Mhm.
give me an idea of what you're spending and just bounce it off another person.
Mm.
And then take a long look in the mirror and say, okay, this is where my money is going. Is this reflective of my goals in life?
Right.
Because if you're spending $1,200 a month at Whole Foods and your goal is to go on a Mediterranean cruise next year, guess who ain't going on a cruise next year? Or
Mm.
you're putting it on a credit card.
Right.
That's really,
And then you're creating debt, yeah,
and then you're creating right, and then you're going to be paying off that cruise
for a
to the
while.
tune of whatever interest rate for X number of months later on.
Right. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely as you get older, and I mean, I wish I would have started sooner, to be honest. But yeah, as you get older, you realize a lot more in life in general, and then in your finances and everything else. I mean, I what? How long ago did I set up my retirement account? It was like maybe 3 years ago, and I
Hmm.
wished I would have started sooner. But I was also at that point where I didn't even know what I was doing with my career at that point either. But every little bit adds up over time. So it's important to just start sometime.
Exactly.
Just get it going. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just leave you with this one example. I'm working with a new client. She just started last week, 50 something years old, making high six figures and has $0 in retirement.
Oh my gosh, no.
And that is actually worse than having a little bit of money in retirement and starting at 22 or 24 or something like that. She will be able to make up the gap. She has, she's got what we call a big shovel. She's a higher income earner, but we're just getting her started now. And that is actually a more of a detriment, believe it or not. People think they need to make six figures in order to save for retirement. That's not the case. Start very small, but start early.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yep. That's the number one thing you can do.
Absolutely. Just even if it's, I think I started off with like $20 a month. I'm not there. I think it's probably beyond that now, but literally I had this conversation before with a few people and they were like, you need to just put something in each month. It's just like a bill, just put it in and let it go. Set it in. Right. So it definitely opened my eyes and we grew from there. So it was good to start. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I shouldn't say I love talking about finances, but it was easier than I expected to talk, of course, because it's not my money right now that we're talking about, but it was good to kind of get insight and help others to kind of have that awareness.
Awesome. Yeah. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, if they want to, I do free consultations, even if it's just one question about retirement, or you're like, hey, I need a whole new financial plan. gracefinancialcoaching.com, and the link is right on the front page, and it's a free consultation. So no matter if it's a big question or a little question, we can get it answered for you.
I love it. You are so kind. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in on this episode today. Please make sure to check out the links from your guest and Visions to Images to learn more about each other. It takes a village, as you know, so connect and grow with one another together. Thank you so much for listening.